out there at the moment. Didn't have a particularly good start to the championship.
Sorry, Simon, it just looks like he's just gone half a tenth quicker than his personal best, but I think he might get balked a bit going into the last corner. Yeah, he looks like he's going to back off and try and get himself some clear space. He had Dino Zamparelli in front of him. It looks like he's really turned up for the fight for this qualifying session, as Daniel. Looking pretty formidable. He's done a 22.8 on his first fine lap before the red flag, and that was only 8 tenths off of what Cord just managed to do this morning. So I think he's looking quite racy, actually.
Yeah, as you see, he can obviously with that 127 clearly, as you quite rightly pointed out, he looked very strong. Sector 1 and Sector 2 looked good for him, and then instantly backed out of it when he realised he was going to get some traffic. Now, this is our championship leader, Teo Elenis. 1 pole position to his name so far in 2013. Obviously looking to repeat that, and certainly the car has looked pretty balanced throughout when we watched it in the free practice session this morning, Alex, and then into this one. Some of the drivers we've seen have looked pretty leery at times, but even Corjus, when he did his time, was one tidy lap out in a flurry of fairly leery ones, wasn't it? Whereas Teo's looked a little bit tidier.
Yeah, no, Teo's been looking really, really smooth. We'll just see what his lap time is as he goes through the second sector. No, he's about 3 tenths off at the moment. Maybe he's just still bringing his tyres up to temperature, but yeah, like we just see going through the fast corner there, he's looking pretty tidy and maybe just warming up to it.
Yeah, that sector there, that section there rather, has caused all kinds of problems for drivers. We've had a lot of people running wide, and there's also been some warning flags for excessive use of the road at turn 1. Now, as you watch them coming down into turn 1, if you look to your left, you can see the red and yellow stripe painted area, and then the blue section. And the blue section has been used an awful lot by drivers in the first section. Here's confirmation of where they're at the moment. So it's quiet from Corjus. Melville McKee, the British driver, in third ahead of Argentina's Faccio Regalia. Teo Elenis currently 5th, Nick Yellerly, Giovanni Venturini, and then Carlos Sainz Jr. with Daly, Zamparelli, Harvey, Vizoyu, Fuminelli, Zonzini, Lichtenstein, and Kujala. That's our top 16, but most of these guys, you can see just how close it is. The top 12 still covered within just over 6 tenths of a second, and it took us down to about, I think it was about 11th or 12th in free practice that were all covered by a second this morning, Alex, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I'm expecting it to get even closer, to be honest. I think everyone's looking pretty fast, and I think the times are just going to start tumbling. What is quite interesting is obviously practice this morning was in a very cool conditions, and now, I mean, I'm not out there in Spain, but I think it's going to be over 30 degrees, and certainly the track temperature may be over 40. So maybe the track is even slower than this morning, so we might not actually see times going faster, but certainly it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, Zamparelli, the BARC Formula Renault champion from 2011. One of those drivers, also former Ginetta Junior champion back in the day, back in 2008. So a guy who knows how to win championships, as with many young drivers, a bit of a battle to get budgets, but has been able to get himself established with a top team this year. See the boys at Roops there on the left. Well, many years ago, I did a bit of Formula Renault, and Roops engineered me once or twice. So I know Roops is a great bloke, and been involved in motor racing at all sorts of levels. When Manor were in Formula 3, winning the championship with Mark Hines and Antonio Pizzonia. So been involved as very much part of the program there. Now, this is going to be significant. New tyres going on, and it's an interesting point in the process where people have made that call to do that.
Yeah, Zonzini coming in there for a new set of tyres. Still 18 minutes to go. It looks like he's coming in early. I don't know if he's flat spotted the tyres or just thinks that he's going to get the run of the green.
Would it be normally like a kind of, dare I say, an F1 type situation where they're going to hang on till a bit later to get the track coming in a bit more?
It depends. I think, like you said, with the F1 situation, you could either wait until everyone's come in to put on their second set and then try and get a clear track, because it looks like a few people are getting balked a bit, like we saw with Danny Kvyat being balked by Zamparelli on a lap that was good enough to even beat his time.
So we're going to watch with interest to see who can get the most out of the tyres whilst they're on a perhaps a used set of tyres, as opposed to going for their new tyre run. Certainly, based on the times that we've seen earlier, as I said, the quickest time that we saw this morning was 1:22.0 from Corjus. Watch now. Here's Elenis. What are we watching for? Is this a lock-up, perhaps? Maybe as he's just going to run wide. This is that. Oh wow, that was that was a bit more than a sideways moment there. Now, you think he's going to pick up damage from that, or is it just going to be a gravelly moment?
I think it looks like it's okay. Hopefully he hasn't damaged the floor, but it probably he was on probably a good lap, and the car in front was just a bit frustrated and maybe lost a bit of concentration. It's easily done, especially going into a high-speed corner like turn 12.
Well, look at that. He was only 1/10 of a second away from Kvyat's quickest time at the moment. So doubtless to say that had that stayed together, that could have been good enough for P1. But sadly, that was an aborted lap. Hopefully, as the car comes in, they'll be able to get the car sorted and back out again. It'll be one of those scooping of the gravel moments that the mechanics will have to do. Now, this is a young man who, like yourself, Alex, came from British Formula Renault, runner-up in the championship back in 2010. BRDC McLaren Autosport Young Driver of the Year that year as well. And had raced up in World Series by Renault Formula 3.5. Had some Red Bull support in the past, and now moved across to Bamboo Engineering. A Scotsman has been looked a lot stronger this weekend so far, hasn't he?
Yeah, no, he put in a really strong performance this morning, going P5, but he was there the whole session. Yeah, it's quite interesting actually, because Danny Kvyat's time is still fastest, even in the first 5 minutes before the red flag. So maybe he actually did get a proper lap in. Maybe the track conditions have got a bit hot, but certainly we'll see what's going on. They've been out there quite a long time now, so I would have thought everyone's coming in for their second set of tyres now to get another shot at it.
Well, that's time that he put in this morning was a 1:22.705, so not actually that dissimilar in terms of what he's already done. So it's kind of a banker lap, I suppose you could put it at, that he put in. Jimmy Eriksson, as we said earlier, was a little bit further down the order this morning. He was putting in a time just outside the top 20, so down in 28th place this morning. So difficult, sorry, not 28th place, my mistake, 27 cars. Look at 25th place for car 17, Jimmy Eriksson, one of the status GP cars. Josh Webster and Adelie Fong, the other two drivers within that team. Now, the other interesting thing that we were discussing earlier on this morning was about the different setups in rear wing from qualifying to the race. Explain, if you wouldn't mind, Alex, what the teams have to work with in that respect.
Yeah, so basically this morning we were seeing teams going for either a qualifying practice run or a race setup run. Obviously, in the races, the maximum rear wing they're allowed to run is 7 degrees. So a few of them were practicing with that amount of downforce just to try and get the just to try and get the car set up correctly. As we just see, Eric Lichtenstein looks like maybe doing a rear spring or rear roll bar change.
Well, Lichtenstein, the Argentinian driver who raced in the British Formula 4 Championship last year, finished runner-up in that series, and also was in for a fight in the final of the Formula Ford Festival at Brands Hatch. Had some dramas there with his bitterest rival, Antti Buri. Buri went on to win both the championship and the Formula Ford Festival. So Lichtenstein making a big step up into GP3 and seems to be dealing with the pressure so far quite comfortably. As we watch the 28 car, one of the cars, Caravano Vino, out there working hard to try and get himself a time that this morning, well, perhaps, sorry, the 28 car of Kurashus there, Vino putting in a time this morning which would have put him just a little bit further down the order than perhaps he would have liked, in 6th relative to his teammate. 1:22.552 for Vino this morning, and a 1:22.0 for Kurashus. Now, Faccio Regalia, the Argentinian driver, he was fastest in the second session in the mid-season test that the teams had in Budapest recently. Changeable conditions, but the 21-year-old Argentinian driver looking very comfortable in those conditions. Still yet to put in a representative time, as you can see. But he's another driver that on his day seems to be able to really drag some pace out of the car. And of course, driving with ART Grand Prix, has got some superb technical support behind him as well.
No, absolutely. I think it seems that in the test days, certainly in the pre-season test at Silverstone, he was really fast. And then he was consistently really fast at the Hungaroring as well. So hopefully we can see him do some good things. Hopefully it'll be nice to see ART get right up the front and really stick it on the front row.
Of course, Jack Harvey, one of the other drivers at ART, along with Connor Daly, Connor, of course, he's had a pretty diverse year already. Did some GP2 at the start of the year and did the Indy 500, emulating his father Derek. Of course, raced there back in the 80s. Former Grand Prix driver for Williams and Tyrrell, March amongst others. So be very, very interesting to see how Connor gets on. So here's confirmation of where we're at the moment. Ira Vino now goes to the top of the timesheets, 1:22.780 ahead of Daniel Kvyat. Then Vizoya still third, Ellis fourth, Korjuch fifth, Adeli Fong, a good performance by him. Then just ahead of Lewis Williamson, Nick Yellowly, who was second quickest this morning, and Melville McKee. Now, we are pleased to say that we have some timing screens working for us now, so we might be able to help you out a little bit more. Faccio Regalia now goes to the top of the timesheet, so 1:22.603 for Regalia. Now, we're seeing times which are quite some way off of what we saw from Korjuch this morning, so I think that's just mainly temperature related, Alex?
I would say so, yeah. We've just got Kevin Korjuch going purple in Sector 1 as well, so he's obviously just brought in his second set of tyres and hopefully can have a good second sector when we see him come through there.
So let's watch with interest to see what Regalia can do on his next lap. Is he going to improve? He's going into Sector 1. He's not as Sector 1 as he was last time.
Connor Daly looking really strong now. Personal best in Sector 1 and purple in Sector 2.
So it could be a lap from Connor Daly, 1:22.8 at the moment. He's currently sitting in fourth position. Needs to find just over 0.2 of a second. Korjuch coming across the line. This will be interesting to see what he does with his time. 1:22.772 puts him second for Kevin Korjuch. A good time from the Karainen GP driver. The 20-year-old Estonian really has been a superstar since we saw him really establish himself as the 2010 Formula Renault Euro Cup champion. Been racing in Formula Renault 3.5 as well, taking several victories there. So bit of a sort of a run of Estonian drivers. Or Sten Pentus, another driver that had been racing Formula Renault 3.5 and winning races. Now it's a very short Sector 1 here, isn't it? Now Josh Webster we talked about very briefly, the 19-year-old who has moved up into GP3 regularly this year, was hoping to do that last year, was initially going to be racing in Formula Renault UK, but unfortunately that series wasn't happening last year and he focused on BARC again.
But here's something interesting. Patrick Niederhaus hasn't really shown much this qualifying session, but he's just done his personal best in Sector 1 and it looks quite competitive. So hopefully he's on a second set of tyres and going to do something quite good, because obviously he needs to take the fight to Teo Elenas, who's leading the championship so far.
So at the moment it's Faccio Regalia still quickest with a 1:22.603 ahead of Kevin Korjuch. Aro Vino